Service Authority for the year 2019. With this, I would like to welcome ma'am and our Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. Jagannath Patnaik, Register Sir Dr. Ravindra Chetty, Deputy Register Sir Mr. Rohit Rathi, Deputy Register Skill Mrs. Sandhya Ranipan, Development Officer Ms. Sisti Randeep Rai, and the PRO Ma'am Ms. Smriti Chetri. Madam have achieved many academic excellence. Therefore, without consuming much of the time, I would like to welcome Madam and thank you for accepting our invitation to grace this occasion. Before handing over the session to our guest speaker, ma'am, I would like to inform all the participants that we will have a brief question and answer round in the second part of the session. I request all the participants to kindly post their question in the comment section for the same. If that is clear, without further ado, I hand over the proceeding to our speaker, madam. Thank you so much. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Pramita. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, yes, ma'am. You are audible.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, my sincere apologies that I could not conduct the program earlier. I mean, on the scheduled date that was on the 12th, and even today, because I had some connectivity issues, so I could not log in, during the time that I was supposed to. So I'm really very sorry for that. That was absolutely beyond my control. I really am thankful to the IFA University for being patient with me and for inviting me to this very prestigious platform, and so that I can share with you all a little bit of whatever knowledge that I have in this subject. Firstly, I must appreciate and appreciate the efforts made by the IFA University in hosting this kind of awareness programs, especially on topics which are very very crucial, and uh, POXO, the subject of POXO being one very important subject. And thank you so much, IFA University. And I do not really consider myself an expert uh, in this subject. But over the years, I have had the opportunity to deal with various cases, relating to POXO. So I have had the opportunity to, actually understand the background of each cases. Each cases are different from one another. So I have had the opportunity to closely, have a look at the background of each cases and to understand the situation which are very peculiar to our state. So as we go into the session, I would probably also be, citing few examples of few of my cases which I have done personally, and through those cases I think we would be able to understand the background scenario of our state, and to also probably understand as to what are the factors which are contributing in the increasing numbers of the POXO cases in our state. There was a time when our state was considered very very peaceful, you know and we didn't had much criminal cases and all that. But over the years, if you look at the number of cases that are coming to the court, especially POXO cases, it's very alarming. It's very very disturbing. So I mean, the institution as prestigious as ICFI, organizing this kind of awareness programs, and it will go a long way in um, you know, uh, in curbing this this kind of in this kind of cases, I believe. So, uh, uh, if before I go into the subject matter, uh, before I go into this act, I would like to state that this act, POXO Act, Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act 2012, came into existence in the year 2012. Prior to this, we had we didn't had a had have a specific law which dealt uh, exclusively with regard to offenses against children. Of course, we had our Indian Penal Code, but that was a general law. So then POCSO Act was introduced, and it specifically and it exclusively deals with offenses, sexual offenses, which a child can be subjected to. So it deals with sexual assault. It deals with various type of offenses, like sexual assault, penetrative sexual assault, sexual harassment, pornography, and so on. You know, and not just that, POCSO Act also deals with safeguarding the interest of the child during various judicial process, incorporating a very child-friendly mechanism. It deals with how reporting of the case is to be done, how the statement of a child is to be recorded, how investigation is to be carried on, and it also ensures that speedy trial through designated courts are done. POCSO Act also deals with, and it also talks about rehabilitation and reintegration of children, of the child victim post, these the POCSO incidents that has happened against them. So it talks about rehabilitation. It talks about reintegration of the society, of the children back in the society. It also talks about of compensation that are to be made over to the child victims. So overall, this act is a very comprehensive law. It's very strict, very stringent, and deals absolutely, against the sexual violence that are being committed against the children. So the objective of POCSO Act basically, are firstly that sexual offenses uh, against a child is a very heinous offense and it must be dealt with very effectively. Number two, uh, best interest, and the well-being of a child is paramount, and it's of paramount importance. And number three is, child's right of privacy and confidentiality should be protected at every stage of legal process. There can absolutely be no compromise when it comes to the privacy and confidentiality of a child. So when we talk about child, what do we mean? Section 2D of the POCSO Act describes child as a person who is under the age of 18 years. So it is gender neutral. It can be a male child, a female child, or a transsexual child, irrespective of the gender. A person who has not attained the age of 18 years is considered a child within the meaning of this act. Now, when we have to go into the details of, if you have to go into the act, I don't think it is necessary, or I don't think it's possible for me to take you through each sections or each provisions of law. But I think, I'll just give you an overview of what this act is, uh, and how, and also considering that we have the time constraints, I'll just deal with the basic sections that we need to understand. Okay, so uh, firstly, if there are different sort of offenses, so if I have to say that sexual abuses are, there are two kinds of sexual abuses that can be committed against a child. First is physical sexual assault and non-physical sexual assault. Even without touching the child, a person can still commit sexual abuse against a child. So under physical abuse, what all comes is fondling of child's, genital or their private parts, kissing a child, touching a child with sexual intent. It's like a mere touch with a sexual intent will also come within the purview of this act. So, fondling of the child's genitals, their private parts, and making a child touch the offender's private parts, penetrative sexual assault, or even touching the child, but with sexual intent. You know, these all comes within physical sexual abuse. When I say penetrative sexual assault, what what is there in this act is that, mm, it does not say that there has to be a penetration with the male organ itself. The penetration can be merely inserting any object insertion of object will also come under penetration, and there may not be a complete penetration. Even there may not be a complete penetration. Even to a certain extent, if the object is inserted into the private part of the child, it will be considered a penetrative sexual assault. And regarding non-physical sexual assault is concerned, uh, there are actually a lot of things that would come under this. Basically, anything that you do, it may be with the consent of the child or may not be with the consent of the child. At times there will be offenses which will be, you know, with the consent of the child, but that also will be considered an offense under this act because the consent of the child is not material, right? So, under non-physical sexual abuse, what it comes is if the offender just utters any word or even makes any sound or makes any gestures, or lewd gestures or exhibits any part of his body with sexual intent, all of that. And the if the offender shows pornographic pictures or obscene pictures or obscene videos, verbal abuse, and playing sexualized games, all of this showing pornographic materials, and even repeatedly and constantly follows or watches a child, you know or contacts a child either directly or through electronic, digital, or any other means. So it need not be a direct contact, even through digitally or electronically. If a child is being constantly followed or watched, it all amounts to an offense under this act. And if someone entices a child for pornographic purpose or give gratifications, later, it all comes within this act. So these are all punishable acts. Mm. So basically, there are different kind of offenses that this act, the POCSO Act deals with. This is the act. So it talks about penetrative sexual assault. It talks about aggravated penetrative sexual assault. It talks about and it talks about the punishment thereof also, and the punishments are very strict. Of course, there is a provision in this act that the offender can be, he can be sentenced to imprisonment for life, and there is a provision for death punishment also. So a person can also be hanged, if he is found guilty of committing aggravated penetrative sexual assault on the minor. So it's a very strict and a very stringent act, and it deals with various forms of sexual assault and pornography and all of that. Now, if we have to talk about, talk in context of our state, I'd like to cite um, one of my cases that I've done. This is, of course, I will not be able to tell you the name of the case or anything like that. I will not be able to give you the details on that. But this is the case of West Sikkim, where there are three girls. They are friends, and they sort of are from a very modest family. Their parents are farmers, and like any other teenagers, these girls also want to have a very good life. They see their friends and all using, nice mobile phones and wearing nice clothes and all. So they are also attracted to that. They also want to have that lifestyle. So what these girls they did was, they left the house of their parents, and they uh, came and started living separately. Three girls had rented a room, and it is during this time that they meet, you know, a couple of boys, and then they started, and they go around, and these boys were, providing them good lifestyle, basically, would give them money and all, but in return, they would establish sexual relationship with this boy. So there were no objection at all, from the side of the girl. They were side of the girls. They were happy being in the company of the boys, and there were no problems. And it was all running smoothly until one of the girls, they go missing, and their parents were trying to contact her for a very long time, and this girl is not being she's not being traced for 2 3 days, and finally, the parents were compelled to file a complaint. So while they filed a police complaint, it was found that this girl has actually gone, and she was staying in a hotel with this one of the boys, and it was then these boys were arrested. There were 7 8 of them who were arrested, and these girls at different times would go out with all of these boys. So all of them were arrested. Now in the police station, these girls are also saying we went with these boys out of our own free will. Nobody forced us, nobody compelled us, right? And the boys are also saying, no, no, we took these girls, and took these girls, and we didn't force them. But anyway, the police arrested all of them, and they had to stay in the jail for a very long time. The girls were thereafter sent to shelter homes. Through this case, what I'm trying to say is, poverty also plays a big role, in or rather has played a big role in, and is one of the factors that has contributed to the rise in the POCSO cases in our state. Girls, they in they just want to have a better life, for that, and maybe they see their friends do all of those things, and they are also, they would also want to have a nice lifestyle. Maybe wear designer clothes, nice branded clothes, have fancy mobile phones, so all of that. So even without knowing that they are being exploited, they don't even know, they don't even realize that they are being exploited. So even unknowingly also, they are getting into, or the circumstances are such that they have entangled themselves in these kind of situations, and they won't even know, they won't even realize that they are being exploited. So I think poverty, for one, is one of the factors which are very peculiar in our state, and because of which there is a rise in the number of POCSO cases in our state. Similarly, if I have to talk about another case, this is a case in, um, where family lived somewhere in a very remote area, and the husband and wife, and there's husband, wife, and a child. Husband and wife have this habit of drinking alcohol, and they would be like in an inebriated condition most of the time, and you know one night the wife wasn't home, and there's just this father and their daughter, who's barely 6 to 7 years old. He's just home. The father, as always, is intoxicated. He's drunk, and taking advantage of the fact that the mother wasn't home, he committed penetrative sexual assault on the on his own daughter. And this incident is, I'm talking about, this incident happened in our state only. The father was, and the girl is the small girl, who's barely 6 to 7 years old. She doesn't even know. Um, she doesn't even know what her own father has done, to her. But she knows that this is bad. She knows that a father shouldn't be doing this to her. So this girl who normally is, very, uh, who's very, who would be very happy, whose nature otherwise is very, should be cheerful all the time. She suddenly stopped talking. She suddenly didn't interact with people much. Otherwise, she would talk a lot, very talkative. So her teacher actually noticed this. There was a change in her behavior. So her teacher noticed this, and this happened, for a long time. So the teacher intervened and called her once, to when she was in her classes. The teacher called her and asked her as to what was wrong with her. So it was finally she confided in her teacher that her father had committed. Father used to do this to her. So then it was the teacher who complained, to the nearest police station, and that is how this case came to light. The father, of course, was convicted later, but there are a number of such cases, and it's very disturbing. It's very alarming. There are a number of such cases where girls or even boys are not safe in their own families. Their own family members are taking advantage of uh, their vulnerability. So I think alcohol dependency and alcohol addiction is also a big factor. And in our state, there is a lot of substance consumption also. So all of these factors also somewhere, somehow or the other contribute in uh, the rising number of the POCSO cases, or rather, violence against children in some form or the other. Uh, in our state, if you check the records, if you check the data in our state, among amongst every 100 cases, I think 80% or 90% of the cases would be POCSO cases. 100 of cases are registered every year. And, there is something terribly going wrong in our state. And, and also there are some cases, there are some exceptions, there are some cases wherein, you know, a girl and a boy will fall in love. There was such one of my cases which went till high court, uh, where girl and boy they will fall in love. In this particular case, the girl was below the age of 18 years, and this boy is barely 20. Just 2 years, 3 years maximum elder to this girl. So and this girl, she is like going around, having an affair with this boy, and their family members somehow come to know about it, and they are totally against the relationship. And this girl, she doesn't want to leave this boy at all. So she plans, she in fact calls up the boy, and they meet and they plan to elope. The boy is like, who is also a student. The boy is like, no, no, I want to study. I think we should both, focus on our studies right now. But the girl, she started blackmailing the boy, and she's like, no, no, if you don't marry me, or if you don't elope on me, then with me, then I'll probably, commit suicide. So she started blackmailing the boy, and the boy had no option but to, accompany the girl. So they eloped, right? They eloped, and after a couple of days, they were, because the girl's family then filed a missing report. Uh, then this uh, boy and the girl were, they were intercepted somewhere. And when they were brought to the police station, the girl started crying. The girl is saying, "No, no, I mean, I went with this boy out of my own free will. I want to be with this boy." And the boy, in fact, if you look at it, the boy was somehow become a victim in this case, because the girl plotted the whole thing. He's barely accompanied this girl, but now that the case has been initiated, the boy is arrested, and the girl, because she's a minor, she's 18 years old. I mean, she's not even 18 years old, because she's a minor, and um, no, of course, no case will be initiated against her. So the girl is now saying, "No, no, I went with this boy, voluntarily." And while they were away, they had in fact engaged themselves in a sexual relationship also. So, mm, so later, the police also knew that the boy was kind of innocent, but the law is such that, you know, you cannot, the consent, like I said, the consent of the minor is of no, no relevance at all. So even when the trial of this case started, there was a big drama in the courtroom also. The girl would cry and say, "No, no, I want to marry this man and I want to marry this boy." And yeah, and even the boy is saying that I will, the boy is like all ready to accept her and all that. But uh, the police had seized the birth certificate of the child, which would prove that she's a minor. The parents are also saying she's a minor. So there were enough evidence to show that this girl was a minor. So ultimately, the boy was convicted for having committed sexual assault, penetrative sexual assault on this minor girl, and the punishment for this particular offense is minimum 7 years. You have to you have to be sentenced to imprisonment for a minimum term of 7 years. So for the minimum term of 7 years, this boy had to go. So through this case, what I would want to say is that this usually in maximum cases, they elope. Turns out the girl is a minor, the boy is an adult, uh, and most of our cases are like that only. So I think it's very important, because the boy didn't know. There was a lack of awareness. There's also a lack of awareness in our society. Had the boy known that this was an offense, probably he would not have eloped. He didn't want it to anyway. But because the girl insisted and he went, knowingly, unknowingly, he committed an offense for which he had to be convicted. So a lot of these cases, especially amongst these young, lots of these cases happens because they are not aware of the law. And in olden days, uh, uh, if if this kind of situation would arise, then the family would let them get married and all that. But um, this law prohibits all of that. And if anybody is allowing them to marry, they can also be prosecuted under this act. So I think there is a lack of awareness also uh, amongst the young people, as well as in the society in general, and these factors are also contributing a lot in the growing number of POCSO cases in our state. Uh, Now, regarding so these are few examples that I have given. Now, what happens in our society is that there will be a lot of cases. There will people will know about it, but they are very reluctant to go and file a complaint. People have this notion that okay, as long as it's not happened to my family, I why should I care? And it didn't happen to my son, it didn't happen to my daughter. Why should I bother? You know, so they're indifferent when it comes to, a lot of them are indifferent when it comes to, reporting these kind of offenses. And even after having the knowledge that somebody has committed some kind of offense against children, maybe has molested a child, or has maybe is has committed sexual assault against a child, they will know about it, but they will not complain. You know, but this law mandates, POCSO Act mandates that whoever comes to know about these kind of offenses and they do not report, and later when the police investigates into this case and they find that you knew about it but you did not complain, then you are liable to be prosecuted, and the punishment for this is for is 6 months imprisonment. So for a minimum term of 6 months, one can be sent to jail for the simple fact that they didn't report the incident, even after knowing that such incident has happened. You know, you need not be related to the child. You need not be connected to the child in any manner. But for the simple fact that you have come to know about this kind of incident, it is your bounden duty to have it reported to the authorities. You know, there are a lot of cases, wherein the teachers of a particular school have, made complaints. Teachers are uh, the people who are with the child, with the student throughout the day. So, they would notice any kind of change in behavior of the child, the way they were and the way they are now, you know. And a lot of teachers have, in fact, when they've spoken to the students, they have come to know about so many of such incidents, and the teachers are complaining in so many of these cases. But unfortunately, we also have had cases where the victim comes to the court, and they say that we had reported this matter to our teachers. We had told our teachers that that I was facing this at my house, or in my neighborhood. But the teacher said that she will not do anything. Why? Because the teacher feels that there's no need for her to intervene or need for him to intervene, because this didn't happen during the school hours, or this didn't happen in the school premises. It's a very wrong thing to even consider, because even if this has not happened in the school premises, but this has happened to a child, and this is reporting it to you, and it's your duty to have it reported to the authorities, you know. So unfortunately, we have had this kind of incidents also, where panchayats were informed, where the neighbors were informed, where the teachers were informed, but they didn't report, you know. Uh, but this act, mandates that whoever comes to know about this kind of cases must report to the police, must report to the authorities. So, people often, criticize that, when you know that somebody in your locality is being arrested for, having committed penetrative sexual assault, or for having committed any kind of offenses against children, and they see that these people have been acquitted by the courts, and they are very quick in commenting that you know commenting that, oh, the law didn't do its duty properly, how come this person is out so early? They are good at criticizing, but at the same time, when it comes to performing their duties, they do not want to do so. If you have seen any incident against the child, it's your duty to report, and also to be a witness in that case. That person is scot free, because people like them did not cooperate with the police, cooperate with the prosecution agency, the courts will only look into the evidence. So when they do not have sufficient evidence, the court is, is forced to acquit these people. So reporting of offense, uh, you know, volunteering to be a witness in a case is also a duty that every citizen should, I think, do in the interest, in the best interest of the society at large. So, non-reporting of uh, these kind of offenses is a punishable act. Now, by reporting, I mean you need not go to the police station. You can just make a telephone call and give out the information to the police. You can just, telephonically also you can give out the information, and the police will be, duty bound to have your statement taken down. They will write down the information and take it as an FIR. So you need not go to the police station. In our state, in so many cases, the children have in fact, called in 1098, that's child helpline number, and have complained. You could do that also. If there's any, if you know that any of these kind of offenses are being committed, you can just, dial 1098 and make a complaint. If you are very scared that, the accused, or the person whom you are complaining against, will hold grudges against you, or their family may do something to you. You always have, you can always tell the police not to disclose your identity. The police will uh, name you as a source informant. They won't even disclose your identity, but at the same time, they will act on the information that has been given by you. So you can very well report the incident, and at the same time you can, hide your identity also. uh, like I said in my, uh, like I said earlier, this whole act is very child friendly. Everything that's all the provisions, right from, like I said, right from reporting of the incident to, investigating, everything has to be done so as to protect the child's privacy and their confidentiality also. So, a lot of time, the family of the victims are reluctant to come to the court and, or to the police, or and complain, because they are scared that, tomorrow there will be, of course there are a lot of stigma that's attached, and people are not very comfortable complaining about these kind of incidents. But let me tell you, there is a provision where, the identity of the child will absolutely not be revealed, right from the, police records to all the relevant documents that are produced in the court. There there is a provision in law that the identity of the child is not to be uh, revealed anywhere. Is so much so that the name of her parents, the name of her locality, the school she goes to, nothing is given on record. So nobody would know, who is the victim in this case. Even when statements are being recorded in the court, it's, the courts are extra careful that the identity of the child is not disclosed in any manner. So her right from her, the area she hails from, to her parents' name, to her name, to her, relative name, everything is concealed, right? And when the as soon as the victim comes to the court, she's taken to the vulnerable, witnesses center. She's made to, if she has to wait, she has to wait there. She's not made to wait in a common, waiting room. And even inside the courtroom, these kind of cases are held in camera. That means only, uh, the people concerned in this case, maybe accused and his lawyer, the victim and uh, the special public prosecutor, the judge, and few court staffs whose presence are required, So only they will be allowed inside the courtroom. No other people can enter the courtroom. So these kind of cases are held in camera. So even inside the courtroom, what happens is there will be a tinted glass behind which the accused will sit. The girl won't even know, the girl or the boy, the victim, won't even know that the accused, the offender is in the courtroom. That is to avoid, any kind of contact between them, because then the victim will become more nervous just by knowing that the person who's committed such heinous crime against him or against her is in the courtroom itself. So to and would be traumatized. So in order to avoid all of that, there is a tinted glass there. So throughout her evidence, the girl won't know that the accused is there in the courtroom. So all these small things are also taken care of and are also looked into to ensure that the victims are very comfortable and they are not subjected to any kind of any kind of agony, and they don't undergo any kind of pressure when they come to the court or even during the investigation of the entire case. Yeah, her privacy and her confidentiality is extremely um, it's protected. Even when even during the investigation, the when the statement of the victim is to be recorded, she necessarily need not go to the police station. She can call the police station. Sorry, she can call the police to her house or to any other place where she is comfortable. So she need not go to the police station and all that. So uh, all this has been properly taken care of. Now, this act also provides, that um, as soon as the victim of these kind of cases are brought and they are if they are not comfortable staying in their house or in their locality where the incident took place, then they can be uh, taken to the shelter homes, where they are given proper counseling. They can stay there if the girl is becomes pregnant because of this kind of offenses. They can go to the shelter homes and deliver the child if they want to, and if they don't want to, they can opt for other measures also. So rehabilitation and reintegration of the child, there are a lot of provisions, there are a lot of schemes that deals with that also. And this act also deals with monetary compensation, although no amount of compensation would be enough to you know sort of I mean no amount of compensation would do justice to what has happened to her. But there also is a provision where she's being compensated. At least she can that is do something with her life. So the state government has also providing them compensation, which uh, would help her in some bit in her rehabilitation. So the act is there, the law is there, but it is for the people to, and as a citizen, I think it's a collective duty to sort of and to sort of see that these kind of offenses do not happen in our society. It's not only the duty of the law enforcing agency or the justice delivery system to have a check on every aspect of it. It's also for the citizen. It's also for the general people to now intervene and see how they can contribute and just being alert. They can help a lot in curbing this kind of offenses. I think more or less I've dealt with what needs to be. These are just the basics that I've spoken about. I have not gone into the details of um, I think I would like to end my session, and I shall be open for the questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We have a question from Purusa. Purusa can ask the question directly if you want. He's a student from our university. Is
Ma'am, I have unmuted everyone.
okay. Purusa has a question. I don't think so is able to connect. I will be reading out. Okay, Purusa, go ahead with the question.
Okay, first and foremost, thank you, Pooja ma'am, for sharing your experience on the topic. We are quite aware of what's happening from your experiences. First, it's quite shocking and quite disturbing, but at the same time, you clarified many things. Thank you so much for that, ma'am. I was wondering one thing. I was just confused. When both the accused and the victim are minors, do we have a case? Or is it just with a minor and an adult under POCSO
No,
Act?
no, no. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
See, when so you are talking about a situation where the girl is a minor, so is the boy, and there is an offense that has committed, right, under POCSO Act. So in such a situation, what happens is there is a if the boy or any of the if the boy is a minor, then he will not be tried in the regular court. For an adult, POCSO cases are dealt by the special judge. POCSO, the special court, which is under POCSO Act. So an adult is dealt. The trial of the adult would be dealt in these special courts. But if a minor is involved, then of course it is an offense, and it will be he will be prosecuted. Sorry, he will be prosecuted, but but he will be sent to uh, juvenile justice board. He will not be tried in a regular court, but he will be sent to our juvenile justice board, and his proceedings will be held there.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
I guess, ma'am, that is the only question left for the today's session. There's no questions.
Just one question.
Yes, sir. I guess they are pretty clear, or I don't know which. If you don't have a questions, means either they are very clear with the topic, or they have not understood anything. Thank you, ma'am. With this, I would like to thank you for addressing the session, even facing the bandwidth problem from your end. It was indeed a stimulating session. Thank you for highlighting.
I'm very sorry about that, about the network issue that I had. I'm really sorry about that. And thank you so much.
Thank you for highlighting on
And
the
thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am, for highlighting on the issues of the child sexual abuse in length and the legislation we have to protect and safeguard the interest of the children, that is POCSO Act. Also addressing on rehabilitation and compensation scheme under the POCSO Act. It is indeed a comprehensive and stringent act that protect the interest of the children. Thank you, ma'am, for addressing in length on the types of sexual abuse, that is physical and non-violent sexual abuse. I hope this helped the participant as well as the society in large to understand what amounts to the sexual assault. Unknowingly, the children becomes the victim of the sexual exploitation. The main factor that leads to such heinous crime is the poverty, desire to have better life, alcohol, lack of awareness. That was very well addressed by you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for making this session more lively and interesting by addressing the issues with cases that you have handled regarding POCSO Act. I'm pretty sure this has helped the participant to know in depth the issues and the problems that we face relating to the heinous crime in the state of Sikkim. It is sad and the triggering issues to know that more than 100 POCSO case is filed in the state of Sikkim. POCSO Act also mandates to prosecute even to the person who are aware or have the knowledge of such crime being committed to the child, but does not report the same to the authority. Certain punishment is prescribed to those person under the Act. Thank you, ma'am, for highlighting those things. It is indeed a very thought-provoking session. With this, I like to end with this with a note that it is a duty and the responsible of all the citizens to combat such heinous crime against the vulnerable section of the society. With this, I would like Ms. Soni Soviti, Assistant Professor and in charge of a legal aid cell, to kindly propose a vote of thanks. Thank you, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. I, Soni Subedi, faculty, ICFAI University, Sikkim, consider the occasion as the honor and privilege to extend the vote of thanks. Today, I take this opportunity to put all my gratitude into words. On behalf of ICFAI University, Sikkim, I would like to extend a very hearty vote of thanks to our guest speaker, Advocate Pooja Lamichhane ma'am, who spared time from her busy schedule to grace this 5 days online legal awareness program. Today, we had an opportunity to hear you, ma'am. Your knowledge and thoughts have enlightened our minds and will surely be going to help everyone in future. I also wish to express my gratitude to our VC sir for providing his constant encouragement and support. I am very grateful to, of course, entire ICFAI family. Special thanks to ICFAI IT team. Last but not the least, I thank all the participants for their presence. Thank you once again for making this event a success. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Pooja, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.